All right, we're getting started here. Welcome everyone to episode, as my phone goes off, episode 4 of Gum Show Studios. We are reviewing Kiss of Death, and my guest is Chris Laurent, right?
That's right. Well,
Am I saying
it's
that
it's
correctly?
it's a
Chris
little difficult to pronounce with the native tongue. It's Laurent. Yes, I can hear you.
Laurent. All right, Laurent. And you're my guest. Now, full disclosure, Chris and I both serve on the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. I'm in District 17 and he is in District 14. So we know each other that way. So we serve as public figures trying to create a bridge between police and community and how to create more effective. I'm not doing it right. I know our Charlie's going to get mad at us. I tried me because I should know this better. But create a bridge between community and police and safety and accountability. Am I saying that right?
Community
Oh,
Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, and there's to be fair to your audience, a lot of interpretation there. So it's inherently what people pull out of it and what it means to them and what they just how they perform to that level. So there's no wrong answer per se, but it's more inherent as to what you subscribe to and what you feel is the most important aspect of the job. So you're accurate on all accounts.
okay, that's great. And so, well, let's just get started. So, where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from Montreal, Quebec. So
Oh,
just north of the U.S. Canada border.
I didn't know that. Okay. And do you speak French? Do you speak fluent French?
Very poorly, very poorly. When I was 5, we moved to New Orleans, Louisiana, and I did a lot of my education there.
Okay, that's why your accent's sort of unique, I think. That's interesting. And so, tell us a little bit about yourself. So the whole podcast is about interviewing folks who devoted their lives to a life of service, and you are a former Marine, right? Or is that right, Marine or no? I'm
Sailor,
sorry,
not U.S. Navy sailor. If
U.S.
you
Navy.
in certain audiences that'll produce a lot of hostility. So I feel compelled to correct you a little bit and not to be the well actually guy, but no, and you're absolutely right. I served in the U.S. Navy for a total of 14 years, combined both active and reserve duty. Um, but and as a matter of fact, I got my first bachelor's degree, and 4 days later, I was at boot camp going through with a bunch of 17-year-olds that thought that they knew more about the world than I did. So it was an experience.
Wow. So that was and you served. You actually saw combat. Is that correct? Or you served
Uh,
overseas? How did?
during my tenure in the Navy, I spent a year on what they call an individual augmentee deployment to Afghanistan.
Okay, and you did that, and you got out of the U.S. Navy, and then what did you do after that?
Well, I went and got a second bachelor's degree for one. Well, actually, let me back up. Most important decision I think I've made in my life is when I returned from Afghanistan. I married my best friend. Yeah, the part of me that's been missing all these years. I found her and made her part of my life, and hopefully I enrich her life as much as she does mine.
That's amazing. Okay, you did that, and I know that we did discuss that you were. How long have you been part of the district council or the CCPSA? I'm still trying to get those letters right. How long have you
Right.
been part of that?
Well, actually, it'd be false to say from the very beginning because the CCPSA stemmed from a couple of different organizations that were started up as neighborhood initiatives. Uh, the Empowering Community for Public Safety, ECPS, was one of those organizations, and they're the ones that usually carry the banner saying that we're modeled after them. When in reality, the Chicago Neighborhood Policing Initiative, they carried a lot of the weight as well. So I'm not saying that one did more than the other. It's an implementation of a lot of different programs that were going on. Um, and of course, the incidents with Laquan McDonald here in Chicago, the shooting and the subsequent conviction of the officer involved in the shooting, kind of led to a prominence to where, okay, we need to do something about it as city government. Um, how I achieved my title is I went through the regular process of getting elected, getting on the ballot, campaigning, um, and putting getting enough people to believe that I was part of the solution and not part of the problem to deliver public safety and accountability to them. So
And
to answer your
you go,
question,
yeah.
timeline, the election that was the municipal election, which was held in February of 2023, I was on that ballot and I was successful in my campaign.
Wow. Yeah, I was appointed. I'll be honest. I was appointed. I person before me was stepped down for whatever reason. My wife brings this thing from the library flyer, and this looks interesting. And I applied. I didn't know what I was getting into, and then as I got further and further down the process, I didn't realize how intense it was, and I got it. And I'm just learning. I've been I've been trying to do my best, and I've been trying to connect with other district counselors to try to understand the role of what we're doing. It's been very exciting. But what um what would you say is the best part of the kind of work that you've been involved in? I know that you did mention you're getting ready to launch a campaign for higher office. What's that desire to do that? Why would you want to do that? A lot of people, I guess, would ask that. Why do this kind of public life and kind of public service?
Well, that's a great question. I do appreciate it. I mean, first of all, my going back to enlisting in the Navy, like, hey, the world is bigger than me, and it takes all of us to be part of the solution. And sometimes some of us need to make the sacrifice to dedicate our lives to making it happen. Uh, Primary reason why I joined the Navy was for that reason alone. Well, and amongst other reasons, I should say. But we can sit on the sidelines of everyday life and say, well, things would be better if we did this. And it's, the true part of the equation is, well, why aren't I being part of that, that method of getting it to where it should be? And that's what drives me to public services. It's not about me. It's about helping my community, about helping and having a positive impact on daily living and daily lives, and make things easier for people. Provide them with safe streets to walk and enjoy life with, and to also have a call to power sometimes when people step out of line and they need to be addressed and corrected. But no, but
And so
and
holding people accountable is
right.
hard to do, right? I think that's one of the most difficult things, um, because you got your mistakes. I think I froze.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Now you're muted. I can't hear you. I think your mic is.
yeah.
There you go.
Oh, all right. Well, now I'm gonna have to learn to edit because we're making all these mistakes, but it's okay. I don't know how to edit, so we're gonna just keep it the way it is. But what I was saying was, it's hard to hold people accountable because you got to walk a fine line too, because people will point back at you, right, and say, so that's a tough position to kind of want to be in. I think we hold our public officials to a much higher standard, and they're human too, right? And they make mistakes, like we do with our police department or our firemen, or and when they fall short of that, it's tough, right? I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, not to sound trite, it's kind of like the old saying, we all fall short of the glory of God. Not that I'm a very religious person or anything like that, but it's one of those things. It's hard to be perfect. And I know this firsthand because I'm nowhere near perfect. But I strive to be as close as I possibly can. Hopefully, a lot of the moves that I make and a lot of the decisions that I make, I like to think are very calculated towards the lowest impact as far as negativity to the community, but the higher level of outcome for the benefit side of the coin. And you're right, it is difficult to hold people accountable, but that's why there's a need for it, though, is because if it was an easy job, we'd all do it. Is number one,
Yeah.
but somebody has to do it, and those that commit their lives to service, and it's paramount.
Yeah. And so, what would you say? I always ask this question too about what's the best part of your day as you go through this work and move through this world of public life? What's the best part of your day?
That's a tricky one to answer. Because there's so many good parts to it. There's a lot of work that's involved. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many meetings I endure on a regular basis. Yeah, yesterday alone, I was in three meetings, one of which you were in as well, and I had to leave that one early for yet another meeting. I've got four, including what we're doing today. I've got four today, and this is a Sunday. But part of it is getting out there and doing the work. That's one of the best parts of what we do, is going out there and doing the work and putting in your effort to do what's right for your community. Uh, it's not one of those jobs where you don't show up and you just collect a check. It's no, you earn every dime, and I still think we're overpaid for what we deliver upon. But that's a different story altogether. But yeah, impacting people's lives in a positive way and getting feedback from them. If I'm doing something wrong, I don't want to read about it. I want to hear from my community that, hey, we think you should focus a little bit more on this, rather than, hey, well, you're doing great, but we're going to talk ill of you to the media. I'd much rather interface with the people whose lives I directly impact. The other part that I would say that you, because the question was kind of loaded, like, what's the best part of my day? Coming home,
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
home. No, coming home and no, seeing my wife and my dog and my home intact. It's, hey, I did it. This is the fruits of my labor. This is what my benefit out of it is. I've got a happy life. My wife is safe. My home is safe. This is why I put in the effort. And I want everybody in the community to have that same. Hey, things are going right because people are out there working hard to make certain that this happens.
Yeah, because you care, right? It's I don't like that. All right. Well, anything else you want to kind of talk about the work that you're doing, kind of the projects you have planned before we dive right into the movie? I usually give people about 13 to 15 minutes to talk about themselves, and then we go right into the movie. But is there anything you want to just kind of plug and talk about? And for those who are viewing us, hit that like button, because really I only got about like 12 viewers, but it's okay. And again, I'm going to keep saying this as we do this. I'm doing this for myself because I love a life of service and I love old movies, and I'm trying to connect with folks who live a life of service. Like you're trying to make the world a better place, the way I think I'm trying to make the world a better place. But I have this passion for old movies, and we'll get into it in a second. But is there anything you want to plug? Anything else you want to say before we get into Kiss of Death?
Well, actually, it's more of a thank you to you. You know, going through the campaign process, which you didn't have to endure, but that's one way of coming into this. But to basically go out and seek, like when filling someone else's shoes that was elected and decided to no longer pursue it, that takes a lot. So I wanted to tip my hat to you as well and say, hey, thank you for stepping up when in a need that your community does desire. And it takes a lot for people to sit there and say, well, is it really worth it? And as you're finding out, hey, there's a lot of work involved, but it's all valuable work. So thank you to you.
Thank you to you. Actually, I'm learning so much, and it's safe to say that you and I are forging a friendship. But we are really on. I think in terms of our views, I think, and it's safe. I don't want to say this, but I think we diverge. We see the world in different lenses, which is okay because I think we're in a world where everybody's kind of like running to their corners and not trying to meet and talk. And I want to appreciate because that's what I want to do. I want to be around. I want to engage with folks who think differently than me, and maybe I don't agree with them 90% of the time, but can we find a 10%, right, where we can meet in the middle? And I always thought that, film, food, family, bring people together. There's a connection there because, like you, my family, my friends, the community I've created means so much to me. And I'm not a person of faith, but I do understand the importance of spirituality. Um, and you know, as you gotten to know me, I just have this thing for the golden age of cinema and film noir, and I think you and I talked when we first met. We talked about, I think it was the Wild Bunch or something. It was a western. We sort of got into conversation about a western or something because I don't know. And I said, oh, I got to have you on. But you did also come to one of my meetings where I was kind of a little nervous, and you helped me walk me through some things that I really appreciate because holding these public meetings are not easy.
Right. And you stepping in as a chair, which is what I
So,
do in my district. But to kind of echo on that a little bit, if I can, you know, I think what I appreciate most about the district councils, and there's a total of 66 of us on the regular anyway. There's always a little ebb and flow as your district through. If we all thought alike, it wouldn't be worthwhile. So the convergence of ideas and thought patterns and everything like that. If you want to come in and have a dialogue, you, to where I'm not mystified by the fact that I know everything and my way is the only way. Like, no, I want to hear what I don't know so that I can make that calculated decision to better improve people's lives. And it's my hope. I respect every one of us that serve in public office. Might not agree with them all, but that's perfectly fine as long as we can have a constructive dialogue so that we have a clearer understanding of what's at stake and what the pros and cons of every decision we make are calculated.
all right. Well, all right, let's get into it. So, the movie we're reviewing today is Kiss of Death, 1947. This is a classic film noir starring Victor Mature as Nick Bianco, Richard Widmark as the Tommy Oodle, the villain, which we'll get into a little bit because I really think Richard Widmark is just incredible. But also Victor Mature is one of, I think, to me, one of the greatest actors of all. Very underrated. And then Colleen Gray as Nitty, the love of Nick Bianco. So this movie is directed by Henry Hathaway. I'm not sure if there's any relation to Anne Hathaway, but I got to do a little bit of research. I don't think so, but it would be interesting. Richard Widmark, this is his debut film, and he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, won a Golden Globe for Best Newcomer. And I think if you've never seen Kiss of Death, there was a remake in the 90s with Nicolas Cage, not even worth talking
Really.
about, but I know some people not even worth mentioning, but it's there. And so, first things, uh, what did you think of the film?
I mean, as a and there, a little bit of my background is in film study as well. That part of my communication theory, because there's persuasion and so many other items in there, but film study was in there as well. I do have a very deep desire to rewatch old classic films, as you mentioned about the westerns and things like that. Spaghetti westerns have a ton of value, and they're it's just funny. But no, but the film noir is the black and white, the graininess, the how things are shot, the lighting, things like that. It really sets the stage and really makes a story jump out into real life. And as a matter of fact, I'd like to go so far as to say that the film noir era, and especially Kiss of Death, the way it's told this simple story, It really sat there and brought it realism to it, and that's what films we expect films to do, is to bring that genuine authenticity, and this is what it would look like in real time. So I loved it, by the way. So to answer your question
Yeah,
more
and
succinctly, I thought it was a
and
great.
it's very gritty. Okay,
Well,
yeah,
and life is gritty. That's like I said, it's the
yeah.
surrealism and realism.
You know the thing Victor Mature plays a guy who just got out of prison, did a 4-year bid. And this is very interesting because of the work that we do in terms of like public safety. I didn't even think about connecting it to what we were talking about, right? Here's a guy who tried to get a job, tried to go straight, but because of his background, and really talks about recidivism, right? And it's Christmas, and he has no money for his kids or his wife, and he goes and he robs a jewelry store and gets caught. And there's this myth about honor among thieves. He's not going to snitch. He's going to keep quiet and do his bit because the mob is going to take care of his family. Right? That's the same old story we've seen in these movies, right? Where like they're going to take care of my family, and they don't. His wife commits suicide because they're so destitute, and the guy who's supposed to help doesn't, and he's spending all this time in prison and decides to become a snitch, right? There's this thing about our society, especially in urban society, urban society, this idea of snitches, right? And how awful that is. And what are your thoughts about that particular motif of this online not snitching? What do you think about that? And the idea of like, yeah, he wasn't a bad guy. He did this bad thing because of these circumstances. What do you think about that?
Well, so as far as the context of the being flipping as being a rat, as they said back in that era of film, or being a snitch, if you will, you, you know, uh, first of all, I think that what this movie tells us in a long form is that, hey, it's not so bad to be a snitch. Like, if you don't snitch on people, it doesn't going to keep them from doing bad things either. So who are you really benefiting but yourself? In the short term, I should say. So it's kind of a
Mm,
cautionary tale to where it's like, hey, being a snitch is not the worst fate you could have, for one. Um, it's and to kind of back up a little bit into what you were talking about, like, he was destitute because of his previous crimes. He served 4 years in prison and committed this other crime, and then he got caught and he goes to jail, and they claim that his attorney tells him, "Oh, we'll take care of your family," and then the wife winds up committing suicide, which is very tragic, by the way. To move drama forward, you have to have a tragic event, and I think there's a milieu of tragic events that took place there. I think what's funny is, and I'm not saying funny, more odd is probably the best vernacular
mm,
to
mm,
use.
mm.
Is, first of all, the stigma of being able to find work after being incarcerated and released back into society. There's a stigma there. Um, However, in the film, I thought it was rather odd that there was that stigma, that social stigma in the workforce that said, "Well, you're not good enough because you were incarcerated. Now you've been released, so apparently you've been rehabilitated to a degree." But there was also this champion effect that they kind of put, like Nettie being in love with him, and it was kind of like, well, yeah, well, your time in prison's not that big of a deal. It just kind of put a weird spin on things, in my opinion. And then also, I think with the DA, the
Mm,
district attorney that he was cutting
yes.
these deals with, still held him in high regard, even though it's like, okay, well, your job is to put people like him in, in jail, but you're still holding him in such high regard, and bending a knee at almost every desire that he asks you for. So it was kind of a weird dynamic. But no, I mean,
Did
I
you?
think that, I'm sorry.
No, no. Did you? You know, that's interesting. That's interesting take on it because I thought they connected because they both had children and they were trying to connect on it. I thought on a human level because I thought the district attorney was trying to get, you know, you go after a little fish to get a bigger fish, which I thought that's what it was. But yeah, I didn't think about that about how he sort of like he had this empathy for Victor Mature's character for Nick Bianco, which I don't think would really be in real life, right? I don't think that would be
Right.
well, I'm not
Right.
sure because I've never been involved in this kind of stuff, but it's an interesting
No,
take.
well, not. And I agree with you, but it's like, okay, well, oftentimes you don't see it portrayed in reality, to where, it's like, oh well, even though my job is to put people who do bad things, outside of society for periods of time, he sure did bend a knee a lot, and oh yeah, I'm your insurance policy, and making all these like deals with them, like trying to entice them towards like,
Mhm.
hey, how big of a fish is this person? And is he really the next in the chain? Is it the only path you have to get to this big fish that you're after? It just seemed a little odd. I mean, I still enjoyed the film though. I think it told a good story. And one of the things that I think I liked about the movie the most was the economy of it. They didn't need to get this long form cast, and didn't need to be a big production. They could sit there and focus on certain, central characters, and kind of like and if you watch television production and are familiar with it, like a bottle episode where you didn't need
Mhm.
all these extras to fill in the space. You could sit there and have just like the key people there to tell the story.
Did you think Victor Mature was one of those ultimate underdogs? Because that's kind of what I felt too when I watched it. Like, I thought Nitty, even though and it was kind of a weird dynamic because he was much older and she was younger.
Right.
She like I guess maybe had a crush on him and then kind of loved him and kind of felt like he was this guy who had gotten all these wrong, these the short end of the stick, which I kind of like, being, I guess, and I always preface by saying this: these films are in a time capsule,
Hmm.
so you can't judge them by 2025 standards. You gotta kind of see them in their moment in time. But I felt like the movie really tried to make Victor Mature this underdog, whereas like, yeah, he's a criminal, but he's a father. Whereas Tommy Udo, now we're gonna get into Tommy Udo, which is Richard Widmark's character, which to me I think he is probably in my top 10 of villainous psychopath characters ever filmed. What were so I felt like there was a real dichotomy there because they were both criminals.
Right.
But Victor Mature or Nick Bianco was not Tommy Udo. Tommy Udo was a whole other level of evil. What were your
Right.
thoughts on? And what do you think of Richard Mark's performance and the character itself?
Okay, so we're moving to Tommy Udo now. Okay, so and that's perfectly
Yeah.
fine. No, I, mean, I thought Whitmark, especially being his first role, he hit it out of the park. You know, because the important thing to remember, 1947, when the film was released, they didn't have gangsters of that variety, portrayed in film. So not only was it his first performance on film, but he created this character that was been since been replicated so many times, and I think that's probably some of the accolades that his legacy on film should really bring forward. And like you said, it really created. Offline, we were talking about how Johnny Depp kind of imitated the Tommy Udo character in Black Mass when he was playing.
Hmm.
So and here's another one because I got to thinking after we had that conversation. Have you ever seen? I think it came out in the '80s. Michael Keaton. It was kind of like a spoof mobster uh, flick. It was called Johnny Dangerously.
Yes. Yes.
If you think about it, Joe Piscopo's character was Johnny Udo as well. It was more like a spoof version of it, you know.
Yeah.
So and like you said, we don't hold the 1947 Kiss of Death to the standards that we hear in 2026. You're right. I think we should go the other way to where we hold 2026 to the same level of 1947. In
Mm,
this regard. No, I mean because they had basically cardboard for their sets back back in those
mhm,
days.
mm,
Or canvas, or like 2x4 walls with canvas stretched over it to make their sets. Whereas here we have CGI, we have green screen, we have like if we were to time travel back to 1947 and say, okay, well, we want to make a film and your budget's going to be $200 million. 1947, they'd be like, what are you trying to buy all of Hollywood? you know
yeah.
you know
So you're looking at it through the lens of production. I was sort of looking at it through the moral lens and like the political lens. It's very interesting how we're both kind of doing. I agree with you on that too. Like when we talk about production level, right? This is what I really I try to get people to understand. We live in a society now where everything's like this, right? It's
right.
saturation of colors, it's saturation of, and if the story doesn't capture you within the first, say, 30 to 60 seconds, people kind of switch off. Where
Right. They
these films, they force you to sit there and it's a slow burn. And when you get to and if you can get to the climax, I always feel like, whoa, like I got to this climactic part, and it really unfolds. um I think the story really does, it's a human story, right? It's a human tale about
Mhm.
people kind of
Reaction.
like making redemption, making wrong choices, and seeing the worst of humanity, but also seeing the best. Because when you see Victor mature with his kids, you see that human part of them, right? Like all of us, right? Like just being with that person. You say yourself, you married your best friend. I'm sure when you embrace her during those hard days, that's got to be the best embrace. And like with my wife, when you've had just a horrible day and things aren't going your way, and you're able to have that human contact. But on the flip side, you see someone like Tommy Udo, who takes an extension cord, takes an electrical cord, ties someone's mom up who's wheelchair bound, and pushes her down the flight of stairs while and his laugh is so
Yeah.
maniacal, right? It almost makes me think like that's where the Joker got his laugh. Maybe I'm thinking Cesar Romero, Jack Nicholson, that weird psychotic laugh when he pushes them, down the stairs. I was just, holy shit. I'm sorry, excuse my
Well,
language.
no, I think the better way to describe the laugh, it's off putting.
Yes, yes,
It's like
yes.
yeah, it's maniacal, but to give it, but like if you're in a room and you hear that laugh, you are startled. You're like something bad is about to happen, or something bad just happened. Like something is not right in this world. Is what that reverberates. And you're right though. Like and kind of going back to Tommy Udo and his character, and because the negatives of his character, and I'm not saying just as he's a spoil and he's a that he people like him, there's no redemption for them or anything. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that kind of raised the bar to another level, to where our characters had to sit there and be comparable to Tommy Udo.
Mhm.
So and over time it's gotten they've raised the bar higher and higher, and it's like, okay,
Mhm.
well, and life imitates art too. So and I so getting back to the whole story arc and everything like that, the redemption, you know all the way up until the end. Nick Bianco,
Mhm.
his character was in a constant state of conflict. And when you think about it, I've got to feed my family, so I got to steal, and I got caught, and I got to go to prison. And if I don't tell on my associates, then my family will be taken care of. And then my wife was, she killed herself, and my kids still need to be cared for. But hey, there's this girl that used to be their nanny, who's in love with me, so she'll help me through it. And and then I can make it all go away if I agree to work with the DA. But it creates a conflict with my honor among thieves partner Tommy Udo, and then it's this constant state of conflict when it comes down to at the end of it. Up until like the last what 30 seconds of the film, it's like, well, did he survive? Is one of your questions. Like this conflict comes all the way up, and it's only the last 30 seconds, and there's a value to that as well, to where you find out, okay, yeah, he survives and everything like that. Spoiler alert, but
No, no, no. I think people are gonna be like,
but
"Oh my God, he spoiled it's a death for me."
I think what you were saying is with the emergence of media, how everything's always, we need we need something to keep us grabbed on and held in for for the rest of it. Otherwise, I'm changing channel or doing something else with my time. It's the value of the slow build and the slow burn, and I think this movie nails it to where it's like, okay, this is go kind of slow, but you can always tell that it's leading somewhere. That's what this era of film was able to do, to where it's like, okay, it's not boring because I can see that they're building up to somewhere. There's going to be a payoff. It's not going to happen in 30 seconds. It might happen an hour later, but it's all going to add up to it. And when you finally get that revelation, it was worth it the entire time. And I think, like we said, this style of film, and I understand why you have such an affinity for the film noir, because it's all similar to that. There's a lot of realism, a lot of grittiness, uh, but it doesn't tell you everything you need to know up front. It's a little bit more cerebral than what we're used to now.
Yes, I also, I think you said something that was very interesting. Victor Mitchell's character was in a constant struggle, right? Like, I have to do this to support my family. I've been in prison. Although I am a thief and a criminal, I have some integrity. I don't want to be a squealer, right? That's one
Right.
of the phrases Udo uses about squealers, right? And but yet he's got to do. So yeah, he's in constant. I even think, to a certain extent, he was a little hesitant to even engage in a relationship with Nettie because she was so young. When she went to visit him in prison, he's sort of like, like I don't really deserve this, right? I think sometimes too, we get in our own way too. When there's an opportunity to redeem ourselves and have a second chance, we get in our own way and we end up ruining it. And I think this tale is a perfect example of like just not getting in your way and doing what you have to do to kind of redeem yourself at perhaps the cost of your life, right? He was like willing to sacrifice his own life to get Udo. I'm running up against the clock a little bit, but I wanted
Sorry.
to ask you. No, 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 no. This has been a great conversation because I think that I know people kind of look at these movies with a certain kind, especially in the modern age, at a certain way, but this is a human story, right? This is really about like, hey, yeah, I made some mistakes, but I'm not a bad person. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a man who wants to live by a certain code,
Hmm.
and I think that's more to me as we break down, as we kind of get down to the granular of the film. But I wanted to ask you, did this film connect with you in any way? What at what point were you watching and think, I connect with this?
Uh, well, it did. It did. The short answer is yes, it did connect with me, and I think what it reminds me of is that first of all, every result of for what we do in the context of what we do as police district counselors, like prison or jail is not the worst thing that can happen to people, for one thing. And plus, it's like, okay, well, and I can touch a little bit more onto that in a different topic, but it's like, okay, look, we're just putting a pause in your life. We want you to sit there and reflect on the severity of the issue, and then, hey, there's still a life waiting for you out there. It's just that we need to make certain that we reflect on the wrongs that we do to ourselves and mankind, if you will, and say, okay, well, let's not do that again. That didn't yield the results I was looking for. Let's not do that again. So the fight against recidivism. So, like I said, there's that one thing, and because the whole prison and complex and things like that a lot of people lean on. It's like, did you notice that prison when he was in the film was a lot different than the prison you see now, portrayed on
Yeah.
film? Tucked
Oh
in
yeah.
shirt. It's like, okay, that's odd that because but it's 1947. That's what was prison. Their view of prison back then. Definitely not what we see today. So I think that might have something to do with it. And we could sit there and talk about how the prisons or jails need to be restructured to be a little bit more accommodating and more character building than what we have currently. And I can agree with that as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that what we need to do is like once people do get back into, which we don't do very well, is how do you reintegrate someone so they don't fall into those traps? Ultimately, it's the individual, because there's some people get out of prison and they never go back, and they make lives for themselves. Some people just don't have that ability to do it without help. So that's that's for
Yeah,
another
that's
40 minutes.
all
We get into that. But let me ask you a question: would you recommend this film to family or friends?
absolutely, absolutely. I think I'm not going to say that this is a cinematic masterpiece such as Rashomon, but which is one of my favorite of all time. But no, I mean, I think that everyone that I would recommend it to, whether it be friends, family, or even strangers, they could glean something from it that would enrich their lives.
All right. And any last thoughts on Kiss of Death?
Well, and I think we kind of covered a lot of it. How the time and space of things and the characters and things like that, and how we've evolved as far as cinematically, thematically, is probably another thing too. But no, I mean, like I said, I think everyone that watches this film can take away something that enriches their life, whether it's the things that we've talked about, or maybe they'll see something that we didn't see that that enriches their life. So I highly recommend it to anyone that loves film, especially film noir. You've kind of reinstilled my passion for that era. Like I said, when we first talked, I told you it wasn't my strongest point, but I think now I'm going to start putting a little bit more time and attention to it, and I appreciate you for that.
Oh no, I appreciate this. Well, I appreciate the time we spent together and getting to know each other. And is there anything you want to promote that you're doing, your organization, anything you want to talk about real quick with the last few minutes that we have that you want to? And real quick before we get into that, just remember if you like this, hit that like button, subscribe. I got like 5 subscriptions, but I want to build it. Again, it's just, I'm doing this because I love film and I love talking to people. And then this has been actually a great conversation, one of the best conversations I think I've had so far. I mean, they've all been great, but this is interesting because the people that I've invited, we are sort of on the same spectrum of the way we view life. You and I kind of are not totally opposite, but you have your views that are that I may not agree with, but yet we found common cause here, and we've had this great conversation. And I think that's what makes it so spicy life. Like just us talking together like this, and even though we may not agree on things, even the way we view the film, I thought it's very interesting the way you were looking at it, the way I was looking at it. But it makes it, I think it makes it much more rich that way. But anything you want to promote, anything you want to like push and say, hey, be on the lookout for this.
Well, no, I mean, first of all, I mean, I you should have more subscribers. I think the quality, the time and effort you put in there, I think that it warrants more audience, and I encourage any of your current subscribers to share it with their networks, because and also watch Kiss of Death for your subscribers out there. It is like I said. I think that no matter what you take away from the movie, it's going to enrich your life. And Luis, I want to thank you for having me on. And it's not that we disagree on things; it's just we see things through a different lens. And if we are
Yeah.
able to communicate with one another and say, "Hey, look, I'm not here to shout you down. I'm not here to dominate the conversation. Hey, this is how I see it. Tell me how you see it. Let's see how they're different, how they're the same, and what we can do to work together to make it a reality." And sometimes there's a little give and take that you have to sacrifice a couple of things, but I don't think that I wouldn't characterize the relationship that we have as we're opposing views. I would say that we
Oh,
have different views. We just have different views that through communication we could come to some sort of a consensus on things. And I appreciate your friendship too. I'm looking forward to helping you in any way I can, whether it be professionally or if you'll have me back on here. If if I get to name the next movie.
Oh yeah, no, 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 definitely. I will have you back on. And yes, I I appreciate our friendship. This I really want, and likewise, anything I can do to help, I'm there. So this has been great. We are 4 5 minutes over, but that's okay because sometimes these conversations take you, and that's what I wanted. Also, wherever it takes us, and let's take that journey together and see where we end up. And I'm hoping that we end up understanding each other a lot more. And you're right, we're not on opposing sides. We just see the world differently, and that's okay. But all right, well, I gotta get to now. So kiss of death. We give it a thumbs up. We connected with you, and so we will see you guys next time. Chris Laurent,
Laurent,
I say
Laurent,
Laurent. Um, thank you for being on the show today, and we will see. We'll talk soon. And I want to thank everybody for viewing. Again, if you like it, smash that like button, subscribe, and then we'll keep going. All right, take it easy, bud.
thank you.
Okay, let me. Okay, let me just